The courtroom was packed long before the hour. People pressed close on the benches, coats crumpled, shoulders touching, everyone carried by the same current of curiosity. The air was warm from so many bodies, but the smell of outside autumn still clung to collars, wet leaves, diesel from the street, a faint trace of cold wind that had followed them in. Phones were already in hands, screens dimmed, ready. The court reporter sat straight, testing her machine with a short series of clacks that broke the silence like stones on glass. The bailiff stood at his post, chin lifted, eyes moving the way a guard dog reads a yard. In the back row, someone cleared their throat too loudly and earned a dozen sharp looks. The mood was tense, impatient, almost electric, like the whole room knew they were about to witness a fire and wanted the first spark. "All rise," the bailiff said. Wood scraped, coats shifted, a ripple passed through the room as the crowd stood. Judge Judy entered without flourish. She didn't need it. The robe swayed at her calves, her steps sure, her gaze already fixed straight ahead. She didn't smile, didn't acknowledge the gallery. She didn't have to. The silence she carried with her was enough. She took her seat at the bench, her hands steady on the wood, her face unreadable. The room sat when she did, the sound of bodies folding back into benches loud in the hush. One man did not bother with the ritual. He stayed seated longer than the rest, only rising when he chose, and even then his posture carried a kind of casual defiance. He was 50, perhaps older, but the years sat well on him, manicured hair, skin burnished by money's comfort, a tailored navy suit cut to flatter, and on his wrist, a gold watch so heavy it caught the overhead lights like a mirror. When he finally straightened, he didn't glance at the bench. He didn't look at the plaintiff. He looked at his own reflection in the black of his phone, flicking it awake with his thumb, then slipping it back into his pocket as though everything in this room was already beneath him. "Oh, wonderful," he said, loud enough for all to hear. His tone was a performance, half weary sigh, half condescension. "I'm wasting my time in a television studio. This court decides nothing." He paused, letting the weight of the words sink, then smiled faintly. "I could buy everyone here, including you, madam." It was the kind of sentence people tell themselves in private. To say it aloud in this room was to step onto a landmine. The gallery reacted instantly. A low gasp rippled across the benches. Someone whispered, "Did he just say that?" A man in a work jacket muttered something under his breath that drew a sharp nod from his neighbor. Phones tilted higher, fingers hovering near record buttons. The air thickened with disbelief. The plaintiff, a man in a worn gray suit, flinched slightly but kept his eyes down. He sat small inside his jacket, his hands resting on his knees, the skin on his knuckles dry and cracked. The woman beside him, sister, friend, maybe both, folded and unfolded a paper napkin with nervous precision. Judge Judy didn't blink. Her expression remained still, her gaze steady, cold. She let the silence stretch until even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed too loud. Then she spoke, her voice soft but carrying to every corner, "Sir, money purchases many things." She paused just long enough for the room to lean in. "Respect and truth are never among them." The gallery murmured, the kind of murmur that spreads like wind across tall grass. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't applause. It was recognition, the sound people make when a truth has been nailed into place. The wealthy man gave a small laugh, brittle, meant to sound amused. It didn't. It carried the faint edge of glass under pressure. He leaned back in his chair, stretching as if bored, and flicked his eyes to the gleam of his watch. He wanted the gesture to say "This is beneath me." Instead, it said "I'm checking how long until I can leave." But no one in the room believed he was in control anymore. The plaintiff finally lifted his gaze, eyes tired but sharp. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. For the first time, the room tilted his way. The wealthy man cleared his throat, louder than needed, and straightened. His eyes swept the gallery with the kind of casual disdain that demands attention. "Let's not pretend," he said, smiling as though letting the room in on a private joke. "My former partner is staging a shakedown. A few pennies squeezed from a millionaire. I invested more in that project than he's seen in his lifetime. And now he pretends I owe him. He chuckled, shaking his head. It's adorable. The gallery stiffened. A man in the second row muttered, "Arrogant bastard," not quite under his breath. Someone else whispered, "He's digging his own grave." Phones angled higher, the red dots of recording lights glowed in the dim room. Judy didn't answer. She simply lowered her eyes to the folder in front of her, her hand resting lightly on its cover. She didn't need to speak, the weight of her silence pressed harder than any words. The plaintiff's companion finally stopped folding the napkin. She laid it flat across her lap, her fingers trembling. The room seemed to shift with her, as though bracing for what would follow. When Judy finally lifted her gaze, the quiet was absolute. Her eyes locked on the wealthy man, and for the first time, his smile flickered, small but visible. He had come ready to perform disdain. He didn't yet realize he had already lost control of the stage. "Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to this channel." He leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, the polished shoe glinting under the lights. His watch slid into view, catching the glare, as though it too wanted attention. "Let's be clear," he said with a smile that carried more teeth than warmth. "My ex-partner? He's chasing pennies. I put millions into that project. He brought enthusiasm, nothing else. Now he cries debt. It's beneath me." The gallery murmured. Phones lifted slightly. Someone whispered, "Arrogant," and drew nods. Judy ignored the theater. "Documents," she said simply, hand open. He had been waiting for this. With a flourish, he lifted a leather folder, thick with paper, and let it drop onto the table. The sound was soft but heavy, a stage effect. Colored tabs stuck out, neat as soldiers. "Everything's there. But reviewing it is a waste of your time. Formally speaking, of course." The clerk retrieved it, passed it up. Judy opened the folder without hurry. Paper rasped in the silence. The only sound beyond it was the reporter's machine, clacking steadily. The plaintiff sat rigid, eyes lowered. His companion twisted a napkin until the fibers split. The wealthy man reclined further, performing boredom, checking his watch like a man wondering when lunch would be served. Then Judy paused. Her finger rested on a line. The crowd sensed it instantly. Leaning, breathing shallow, waiting. "There is a transfer," Judy said. 3 days before your final settlement. From holding account to your personal LLC. Absent in your summary. Mistake? Or did you assume I wouldn't notice?" The benches erupted in whispers, someone gasped out loud. Phones shot higher. The plaintiff's head snapped up. The man chuckled, but it rang hollow. "Judge, that's just advance allocation. Accounting hygiene. Not a debt. Anyone who understands finance knows." His hands spread in practiced ease, the watch winking. Judy's eyes rose, pinning him. "Advance?" Her voice was low, calm. "Your ledger calls it final disbursement. Not advance. Final." The gallery gasped as one. The plaintiff's companion pressed her hand to her mouth. He tried again, too quickly. "Finalizing a tranche. Different terminology. My counsel would explain, if this were a real court." His shrug gestured toward the cameras. Judy turned another page. Wire, 9:18 a.m. Into holding. 9:23 a.m. Into your LLC. Memo, complete. Your note, not the bank's. Why exclude it? This time his pause was visible. A single blink too long. Then, if I meant to hide it, it wouldn't be on paper. I streamlined. Removed clutter. He rolled his wrist, catching the light. "You're welcome." No one in the benches laughed. A man muttered, streamlined into his pocket. The plaintiff's jaw clenched. Judy aligned the papers with precise corners. Clarity is my specialty. So is chronology. Your summary says the plaintiff received full and final payment on the 21st. This transfer happened on the 18th. If not for him, who was it for? The smile on his face wavered. He swallowed. His answer came slower now. Efficiency. That's all. The word fell flat. Judy closed the folder halfway, resting her palm on it. We'll revisit this entry. The crowd recognized the signal. Phone steadied. A ripple of anticipation moved through the benches. The plaintiff shifted upright. The man tugged at his cuff, smaller now, tighter, like a reflex he couldn't control. Next, Judy said evenly. Original agreements. Not summaries. Originals. His hesitation showed. The pause stretched too long. Finally, he slid forward another folder, thin and limp. You're wasting time, he said, but the polish was gone from his tone. The clerk brought it up. The paper was weak, reprinted too many times. Judy flipped quickly, then stopped. Her nail hovered over a signature block. The reporter's keys rattled sharper, as if the machine too felt the shift. The man forced a smirk. You won't find anything new. Judy closed the file gently, looked straight at him. I already did. The gallery roared in whispers and gasps. Phones rose higher. The man sat still, smile gone, jaw stiff. Judy's eyes never wavered. Judy didn't raise her voice, she lowered the room instead. Her hand rested on the file, two fingers pressing the paper as though it might try to slide away. She spoke quietly, which forced everyone else to lean toward her. You call it an advance, she said. Strange, because your partner has a contract that labels it something else. She paused. Final payment. The word struck with the weight of a hammer despite its softness. The benches rippled, gasps, a sharp O from the back, the shuffle of shoes as people tried to see better. A phone camera zoomed, the lens catching the brief tremor in the man's jaw. The plaintiff straightened, almost against his own will. His companion's shredded napkin stilled in her lap. The wealthy man forced a smirk. Counterfeit. They mocked it up. Happens every day, documents, signatures, fake contracts. It's theater. Judy didn't flinch. She turned the page, the dry rasp cutting into silence. Counterfeit, she repeated. Interesting. Then explain why your own counsel signed it. She tapped the signature block. Explain the notary stamp. Explain the affidavit attached. Her gaze locked on him. Are you saying your lawyer forged your deal? The gallery broke into low laughter, sharp disbelief. The bailiff raised a hand, the noise snapped back down, but the current remained. A man near the rail muttered, he's cooked. The defendant adjusted his cuff, though it was already perfect. He tried to sound bored. My attorney signs drafts. Not every signature ends up on the final instrument. You're cherry-picking one version. Judy angled the paper so the fluorescent light caught the embossed stamp. This isn't a draft. The subject line in the email says, executed copy. The notary recorded it. Your lawyer's initials mark the margins. These are not hypotheticals. The plaintiff's companion exhaled audibly, relief breaking through tension. Phones tilted higher. The stenographer's typing grew faster, as if the keys were sprinting to keep up. The man's tone thinned, losing polish. Judge, with respect, you're confusing process with outcome. We iterate. Anyone who builds knows that. He forced a laugh, scanning the gallery. My partner is trying to weaponize paperwork. You weaponized it first, Judy replied, her words sharp but calm. You used it to declare a debt complete while moving money days earlier. That's not paperwork. That's a timeline. She closed her hand over the file, anchoring it. So explain why his ledger shows a blank and yours shows complete. And do it without synonyms. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. His eyes flicked toward the cameras, then away. Finally, because it was internal housekeeping. Not for him. This is not housekeeping, Judy said. This is concealment dressed in vocabulary. She flipped to another sheet. Clause, final payment remitted upon full delivery. Delivery logged on the 21st. Transfer marked complete on the 18th. The word upon has meaning. You can't pay before the condition exists. The benches stirred like a congregation agreeing in unison. The plaintiff's hands clenched, this time not in fear but in recognition. The wealthy man tried another smile, but it faltered under the fluorescent glare. If this is your case, he said, forcing control back into his tone, then you're balancing it on semantics. Semantics, Judy answered, is the only reason contracts exist instead of fistfights. And yours are failing you. She turned her head slightly. Clerk, mark the contract, the stamp, the affidavit. Flag counsel's acknowledgement. The clerk moved quickly, neon tabs snapping down. The man opened his mouth. Judy cut across him with a whisper sharp as glass. Don't. If it helps you, wait. If it's noise, swallow it. He swallowed. The gallery saw it, and the reaction rolled across them, half amusement, half awe. His watch, once a symbol, now looked heavy on his wrist. Judy stacked the pages neatly, aligning the edges as if they were stones in a wall. You say forgery, she said. So we'll test that. Courts don't rely on speculation. They ask witnesses. He stiffened. Who? Him. His cousin. Some clerk they bribed. His brittle laugh rang false. We all know how theatrics work. Judy leaned forward just enough to make the distance between them feel smaller. I prefer witnesses to theatrics. She let the line linger before delivering the turn. So let's hear from someone who stood in the room, who saw the signatures, who shook your hand when the deal closed. A stir passed through the gallery, every head instinctively turning toward the rear door. Even before it opened, people were leaning. Bailiff, Judy said without moving her eyes from the defendant, bring in the witness. The hinges gave a metallic sigh. The door opened, spilling a line of light across the floor. A figure stood in silhouette, shoulders squared, a folder pressed tightly against their chest. For a moment they didn't move. The gallery froze, breaths caught. Then the figure stepped in. The door closed with a soft click. The silence that followed was absolute, the silence that falls 1 second before truth collides with lies. The hinges groaned, and in stepped a thin man in a charcoal suit, shoulders squared but not proud. He looked like someone more used to balancing spreadsheets than standing before cameras. His glasses flashed under the fluorescent light. He clutched a folder close to his ribs, like evidence that might try to escape. State your name, Judy said. Marcus Allen, he replied. His tone was steady, precise. Senior accountant, 8 years with the defendant's company. The oath was sworn. The gallery leaned in, benches creaking as though the room itself wanted to hear. Phones rose, glowing red dots waiting to capture every word. Judy asked the question without ceremony. Were you present when the disputed contract was signed? I was, Allen said. He opened his folder with careful hands. Conference room, late afternoon. The plaintiff, the defendant, counsel, myself, and a notary. After the signatures, the defendant said, his words, near exact, I'll document the last payment later, so no one notices. He laughed when he said it. The words set off a chain reaction. Gasps, whispers, even a laugh from the first row. Someone muttered, he's done. Phones tilted higher. The defendant exploded. He shoved to his feet, face blazing. Fuck you. You're nothing. They paid you to stand here and lie. His voice cracked across the wood and echoed up into the rafters. The gallery roared in response, shouts, a shrill, "Oh my God," from the back, laughter, shock, disbelief. The bailiff raised his hand, barking order, until the noise thinned into ragged quiet. Through it all, Judy hadn't moved. She didn't blink differently, didn't shift an inch. When she finally spoke, her voice cut through the leftover chaos like a scalpel. Now everyone can see how a person looks when the arguments are gone. Silence landed heavier than the shouting had. The defendant's breath came harsh, the gold watch on his wrist suddenly more anchor than ornament. He sat back down slowly, eyes burning. Alan continued, unshaken. 3 days before the delivery deadline, a transfer left the holding account for the defendant's LLC. Memo line, complete. My ledger copy shows it. The plaintiff's summary does not. He flipped a page. I flagged the mismatch. I was told to mind the narrative. The benches hummed, people shifting, whispering. The plaintiff's companion dropped her shredded napkin and laced her fingers together as if bracing. Why are you here today? Judy asked. Alan exhaled. Because when I tried to reconcile accounts, the gaps widened. I raised it. I was ignored. I resigned last week. But before I left, I backed up my notes. He tapped the folder. Internal memos, counsel's remarks, and my own recap from that night. The defendant barked a laugh, brittle and thin. Paranoid. A collector of scraps. He was never at the real table. Alan didn't look at him. Receipts are receipts, he said quietly. Judy regarded the defendant now, her face unreadable. Would you like to cross-examine your accountant, she asked, or just shout at him? He sneered but didn't speak. Alan passed forward a printed email. Judy read aloud, do not circulate revised summary to other party until after filing complete. Time-stamped the same morning as the transfer. She looked at the defendant. Would you like to call your own lawyer a forger? No answer. Just the twitch of his jaw. The gallery murmured like an audience realizing the ending of a play before the final act. Judy stacked the pages methodically, one atop another, ledger, memo, recap, email. Together they looked less like paper and more like bricks building a wall around him. Thank you, Mr. Allen, she said. Remain available. He stepped aside, shoulders straighter now, his duty done. Judy turned back, voice colder than before. Mr. H., you may sit very still now, or you may speak and make things worse. Either way, the record advances. The defendant clenched his jaw. He glanced toward the cameras, then toward the gallery, then back to her, as though searching for an escape hatch in a room with none. Judy let the silence stretch just long enough to make it painful. Then she reached beneath the bench and placed a sealed envelope on the wood. She didn't open it yet, she only rested her hand on top. The gallery stirred. Phones rose higher. The plaintiff's companion's lips parted in a quiet gasp. The defendant's voice broke the tension, what is that? Judy looked at him for the first time in minutes. Evidence you thought would never surface. Her fingers traced the edge of the flap. We're about to see if your story can swim. The silence was suffocating. The gallery leaned in, breathless. The defendant gripped the table until his knuckles whitened. Judy slid one finger under the flap, deliberate, ceremonial. The paper crackled softly. And before a single page was drawn out, the room already knew, something inside would break him. The envelope lay on the bench like a loaded weapon. Judy opened it slowly, drawing out a stack of papers bound with a brass clip. The gallery leaned forward so sharply the benches groaned. Screens rose, tiny red lights glowing in the dim air. Chain of custody, she told the clerk, who stood ready. The clerk recited, warrant, return filed yesterday, provider confirmation, account identifier. The room listened as if it were scripture. When the final digits were read, Judy lifted her eyes to the defendant. His hands were flat on the table, fingers rigid, the gold watch on his wrist now a shackle rather than a trophy. First message, Judy began, voice calm as glass. Subject, settlement doc. Sent from your device, 10:41 p.m., 3 days before the transfer. Quote, I'll park the last payment through the other account. Cleaner. He won't find it. The gallery exploded, gasps, nervous laughter, a loud, oh my God. The bailiff barked for order, hand raised high, forcing the chaos back down. The plaintiff shut his eyes, then opened them quickly, like someone shocked back into life. The defendant shot to his feet, scattering papers. Fabricated. He shouted. You're reading fiction. Jokes. Drafts. None of it counts. His voice cracked as he swiped at the table, sending exhibits skidding. This is a circus, I'll take it to a real court. Sit, Judy said. Not loud, not fast. The word landed, and the room made space for it. He sank down again, a beat too late. Judy turned another page. Next message. Subject, tidy version. Sent to your counsel and controller. Quote, keep the plaintiff's summary light. We'll finalize after we're through the window. Attachment, settlement _summary _V3. The plaintiff received V1. Phones lifted, zooming. Someone in the second row muttered, he wrote it himself. The stenographer's machine hammered faster, eating the moment. Judy moved on. Counsel replied, warning risk. You answered at 7:02 a.m. Relax. This is TV. She wants drama, not decimals. Judy let the silence deepen. Decimals don't swoon, Mr. H. They testify. The benches rippled with laughter and gasps. The defendant scrambled to collect his scattered pages, hands trembling. Headlines, he shouted toward the cameras. You're feeding them a headline. Judy didn't even blink. She lifted the last sheet. Final message, 9:12 a.m., day of transfer. Quote, I'll hide this payment through the other account. Old man won't know what hit him. The room erupted, laughter, groans, even applause before the bailiff's hand snapped it silent. Someone hissed, that's it. The plaintiff's companion gasped, then covered her mouth. The plaintiff simply sat taller, as if a weight had slipped from his chest. The defendant's face mottled red and gray. Lies, he shouted, stabbing the air. Every line of it. I'll sue all of you. You'll see what a real courtroom looks like. The watch clanged against the table as his fist struck the wood. Judy regarded him with a stillness that hurt. I do enjoy watching people bury themselves, she said, her tone almost mild. You've dug deep today. The benches rolled with uneasy laughter, not cruel but inevitable. Phones caught every flicker of his collapse. He tried to form words and failed. For the first time, he looked small in the chair he had owned so easily an hour ago. Clerk, Judy said, back to business. Mark the warrant return. Attach chain of custody, cross-reference metadata with the transfer time. Pair the 912 email with the 918 wire and the 923 LLC transfer. Bind counsel's warning and the defendant's reply. Marked, the clerk answered, flags clicking down like nails in a coffin. Judy squared the documents, Allen's ledger, the notarized contract, the bank statements, the emails, into a single neat pile. The weight of it was not paper, it was finality. The gallery seemed to exhale together, shoulders lowering. Mr. H. Judy said, eyes steady, do you have any explanation that contains facts? He stared at the stack as though it might vanish. This venue doesn't matter, he muttered. I have resources. He tried for his practiced smile, but his mouth couldn't hold it. Truth matters everywhere, Judy said. Venues only decide how fast it arrives. The benches hummed with agreement, soft but certain. The plaintiff bowed his head once, silent thanks. The witness at the side folded his hands, unmoving. Judy laid the final page, a delivery log, on top of the pile. We have the timeline. We have the admissions. We have the money, and your words in your own account. She let the next line cut through the hush. The record is complete. The gallery breathed out as one, a long release. The fluorescent hum above seemed to soften. The defendant reached for his water. His hand shook so badly he missed the glass at first. When he found it, he gulped, set it down carefully, and stared at nothing. His watch caught only dull light now. Judy slid the stack toward the gavel. The motion was small, final. We proceed to findings, she said. The benches shifted, phones rose, and the entire room leaned forward. The plaintiff's companion squeezed his arm once and let go. Judy's voice dropped into the silence. On the question of liability. The pause hung, sharp as glass. The room waited for the strike. The silence felt heavier than the walls themselves. Judy rested her hand on the neat stack of documents, emails, ledgers, contracts, transfers, aligning the corners with slow precision, as though truth deserved symmetry. She didn't look at the gallery or the cameras, her eyes stayed fixed on the defendant, the man who had walked in with gold on his wrist and a smirk on his face. On liability, she began, her voice steady, the record leaves no room for doubt. You concealed funds, misrepresented completion, and called fraud by prettier names. You are liable. The word didn't echo, it settled. The gallery exhaled in unison, a sharp breath breaking like glass. The plaintiff didn't move, his companion squeezed his arm once, her fingers trembling. As for remedy, Judy continued, you will repay the plaintiff the full misdirected sum, interest, and costs. She glanced at the ledger and then returned to him. $150,000. Gasps rolled across the benches, followed by low murmurs, as if the crowd itself needed to repeat the number to believe it. A few claps broke loose before the bailiff's hand restored order. The fluorescent lights hummed above, suddenly less oppressive. The defendant tried to speak. His lips opened, closed, then struggled again. This venue, he began, but the words died. His hand twitched against the table, the gold watch striking wood with a soft, accidental clink. Judy leaned forward just enough to make the distance between them feel dangerous. Venues don't rescue facts, she said. They frame them. She let her gaze rest on him, cutting away the armor he no longer wore. You laughed at this room. You mocked the law. You treated your partner like furniture. And you mistook concealment for cleverness. A tremor of recognition moved through the gallery, half approval, half awe. Phones tilted lower, not to hide but to capture. Money buys comfort, Judy went on, her voice cold and measured. It buys spotlight. It buys the illusion of control. But it never buys honesty. It never purchases respect. And here, you have lost both. The plaintiff's companion pressed a fist against her lips, fighting the urge to cheer. The plaintiff himself closed his eyes for a second, not in triumph but in sheer release. The defendant stood abruptly, shoulders jerking as though fighting invisible weight. His face flushed and drained in turns. I'll appeal, he muttered, voice thin. This doesn't matter. I have resources. He tried to smile, but the shape never reached his eyes. Truth matters everywhere, Judy said. Resources don't erase it. They only buy time. And your time here is finished. The benches stirred with agreement, a low murmur like wind moving across tall grass. Alan, the accountant, stood stiff at the side, hands clasped, as though afraid that any gesture might fracture the moment. Judy placed a final sheet, the delivery log, on top of the pile. We have the timeline. We have the transfers. We have your words in your own account. The record is complete. The gallery's collective breath released at once. It sounded like the end of a storm. The defendant reached for his water but missed the glass the first time. His hand shook when he found it. He drank quickly, set it down too carefully, and stared at nothing. His gold watch caught the light one last time but no longer gleamed, it only reflected dull metal. Judy slid the stack of documents closer to the gavel. The movement was small but absolute. Judgment for the plaintiff, she declared. $150,000, plus costs. Immediate compliance required. The gavel struck. The crack rang out clean and final. Applause broke before the bailiff barked it back down. Then came silence, not empty, but swollen with understanding. The case was finished, and so was the illusion of untouchability. The defendant stood frozen, lips pressed thin. His posture sagged by degrees, his shoulders no longer squared. For the first time, he seemed to occupy his real size. Cameras fixed on his face, recording not wealth or confidence but the fragile shell left when both are stripped. Judy leaned once more toward him, her final words sharp and unhurried. Next time you think of laughing at a court, count the cost first. Today it was $150,000. The interest, she added, is the lesson you'll carry. Her gaze didn't move until he lowered his eyes. Then she struck the gavel a second time, quieter, the sound of a period at the end of a sentence. Court is adjourned. The benches shifted, phones dimmed, throats cleared. The exit sign glowed red, steady, indifferent. The plaintiff sat still, as though letting reality catch up with him. The defendant remained on his feet, hollowed out, the weight of the verdict pressing against the silence. And that silence, heavier than applause or outrage, was the final verdict everyone carried out the door, a powerful man, suddenly small, and a truth that could not be bought.